roads intersect, on each one I reflect. These lines write my story, these places change me, each one replacing, like night into morning. I miss the open air, the going anywhere, riding with you, like we used to. Guess I'm better off alone, never know when I'll get home, but I know that home's where the heart is. Guess I'm better off this way, moving to better days, but I know that home's where the heart is.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
As the leaves start falling down and the shadows above our town, I can finally see you now. I see the fear inside your eyes, I see the pain in your smile. I can finally see you now. Oh, we radiate all over the world. We used to radiate, but now we're drowning.
was in, and now we're running down the halls. No, we can't let them win. There's an evil inside, just lurking way down below. And if I can't hold my breath, then I'm bound to become hollow. Can you say that I've disappeared? Can you say that I wasn't there for you when you went into hiding on the front steps of your porch? And I reflected on the memories, but I put out that torch. Hey! But I put out that torch.
You make me feel like home. You turn around, I feel the breeze over me. You watch your dreams unfold. Let it come around and let it breathe over me. It's time to go away into the light. I feel the calming energy. I see the darkness coming, and I'm calling you to help me set me free. I'm calling for you. I'm calling for you. I'm calling for you.
Throwing caution to the wind. I'll take a chance and let you in. Just take my hand and take me home tonight. We defeat all impossibilities. Yeah, you and me will take our hearts and Going harder, we are more than numbers, standing in this hate. Going louder, we are all one color, standing in their way. Join the army of the shadows. Join the army of the shadows. Join the army of the shadows. Going harder. We are more than numbers, standing in their way.
Standing in a glass bowl at the end of a black hole, cold lost beneath the ground. Altered by my own hand, I allow my feelings to become sad. If you're gonna cut me down, better do it quickly now. Now you can cut me down, but I won't stay for long. I'll grow back again. Oh yeah, my roots are strong. your smile. Now the sunshine brings the light. Fill me out with a flame. I will let you in this game. Take me out when I'm down. 'Cause with you I'm safe and sound. 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 I'm safe and
Welcome to the ePulse Royal SEA Cup. Whilst we are in the group stages of this tournament, I wanted to take an opportunity to look at some of the bigger hitters when it comes to the teams involved, and who to really keep an eye on that you expect them to go out of groups, through playoffs, and to maybe even win the whole event. To do this, I'm going to go through all of the groups and highlight one of the teams that I think is going to do quite a lot. We'll start with Group A, and we'll start with Attack All Around. This is a team that's had some great results across the bigger tournaments in the Southeast Asia region. It's a team team from Thailand and have been in the finals of the two biggest tournaments, winning the Africa TV Asia Invitational and coming second in the Cyber Games Arena Pacific Open. Both of the finals they played up against AHQ Esports, which we will talk about in a second, with a dominant win 2-0 in the Africa TV tournament and a very close loss 3-2 in a best of 5 in the CGA Pacific Open. This is a team that has a lot to prove. You could definitely tell that they've been watching both the NA and EU scene when it comes to strategies, executes, and what agents to use. And with the balance patch at the moment, I think this is a team that can really adapt and overcome any opponent, but most definitely they'll want their revenge on AHQ if they can get that far. I say that because there's a lot of really good high competition in this tournament, and when it comes to that, look no further than Group B, and the favourites over there, Vision Strikers. You've probably heard of this team. They're from South Korea, and they've pretty much won everything that they've played in. They've had some really dominant results in the Korean tournaments, most notably Clan Masters 2020, and this is a team that plays some really aggressive and exciting Valorant. It comes as no surprise that South Korea has taken a liking to a class-based FPS game, but that doesn't mean at this point that Vision Strikers are just going to have their way with everybody in this tournament. But make no mistake, this is the favourite of the tournament by a pretty large margin. Now we get onto Group C, and it's much more competitive when it comes to the teams involved, but there's not really a specific team that you look at and go, they are definitely getting out of groups and you can expect to see a lot out of them. Out of all 4 of the teams, Boom Esports has had the better results, but they just got to playoffs in the CGA Pacific Open and lost out to Team SMG. It's not really a solid look for this team, and really any of the 4 teams can come through playoffs and not be a super surprise. But since CGA Pacific Open, Boom Esports have been able to win a couple of smaller tournaments at least, and maybe with the meta changes, they might be able to find a lot more solid footing. So expect to see some pretty interesting stuff potentially out of the Indonesian team, but they're not quite at the Colossus level as Attack All Round, and certainly not when it comes to Vision Strikers. Now going over to Group D, I mentioned this team before already, and that is AHQ Esports. It's basically vice versa for Attack All Around. They came second place in the Africa TV tournament, but then won out super closely in the Cyber Games Arena Pacific Open. With that momentum, they went into the Africa TV Asia Showdown tournament, which happened last weekend, where they played up against some of the bigger teams in South Korea, like Vision Strikers as we spoke about, but also Japan's Absolute Jupiter. Unfortunately, against this team, they lost 2-0 in the semi-finals, not really having an opportunity to show their strength, losing out 13-7 and 13-8. So whilst this is a team that won the most recent tournament that they were a part of, they still have a lot to prove to really show that they're a dominant force, not only in Taiwan, where this team comes from, not even in just the Southeast Asia region, but in Asia as a whole. You'd expect this team to get out of playoffs, but if they run into a team like Vision Strikers or even an inform Attack All Round, things might be a little bit tough. But these are the favourites out of the groups. But no matter what happens, we're going to have some really great games and no doubt a few upsets along the way.
Hello, for the last time, to the final day of the Royal SEA Cup. We're here in the pre to discuss the games of the day, to figure out how this tournament has gotten to this point. My name is Mr. L+. Joining me is Seek and Strike and Gideon Q. Thank you for being back, Gideon. We missed you yesterday. Before we start, though, of course, the panel, we do have a little bit of a giveaway that we'd like to talk about. So, if you guys have been watching this tournament, we're trying to give you goodies the whole time. We just want to give you stuff, right? We want to help you look just better overall. And that's why we have a couple of Valorant caps, which is just a couple of caps with the Valorant logo. You can put it to the side and be cool. You can put it to the front and be straight. Or you can put it to the behind you and be a 5-year-old kid. It's your choice. Whatever you want to do. That's why we are giving you 3 Valorant caps that you can gain by just participating in our slight giveaway. This giveaway can be found on Eeples Gaming if you do !giveaway or !hat, but it can also be found on our social media at Twitter, at Epos Gaming, facebookgaming.com/EposGaming, or instagram.com/EposGaming. And in the first pinned post, you'll find a little link that will send you the instructions to participate in this giveaway. And this will include things like, for example, following us on our channel, following on Twitter, or downloading AimLab. And when you do these things, you'll get a single entry, and the more entries you have, the more chances you have of getting these caps. Okay, now that I've done selling my soul, we'd like to talk about the tournament, yeah? So we have a couple graphics ready to make this easier for you. We are going to start with the group stages, so people can remember the first stage of the tournament. It felt so long ago when these teams were participating in groups. Right, guys?
I don't know how long we're going to take until we're just going to bait it out of it. But yeah, it's been really, really good so far, and group stages have been honestly one of the more monumental parts, besides the playoffs, of course. But again, it's just a small stepping stone to get for something bigger.
Yes, Group A, perhaps one of the, not the strongest ones, but some of the stronger contenders, because Myth actually manages to make it through.
Well, I mean, I would say Group A is statistically the strong 3 teams, and
Yes.
2 of them are from Group A. So
Group D was the one that actually got eliminated first.
That's correct.
Which we'll find about later. We call it the Group of Death because everyone was so equal, but unfortunately they weren't able to beat the Giants that came from Group B or Group A, which was the more imbalanced groups where you saw a difference clearly between the first and second seed and the last seed in those groups. We should also like to remind you guys about the prize pool for this tournament, the breakdown, so you can find out how much the winner's making, how much second place. We actually don't have a very top-heavy prize pool. There's prizes for everybody, but up to 4th place here, and relatively evenly spread. So even the teams that don't make it to the finals, they should still be happy with a good performance, and they'll still get a bit of prize to take them through the next months until the next Valorant tournament.
That's right. Bren and BBI are going to take home 1,500
Not
US
bad.
dollars apiece, and Boom with that 4th place to secure 2K. So we still have a total of 20K up for grabs total in this prize pool, with the winner taking a lion's share with that 13K.
Very, very nice. Let's hope they get to appreciate that, and because they're gonna earn it for sure. As this has been one of the hardest tournaments, honestly, that we've witnessed. Very, very tight tournament for most teams. A lot of competition. I mean, yesterday alone, seeing Boom Esports against AAA. If you don't think that's a close match, I don't know what you consider a close match. And actually, to bring that up, we would like to see the brackets as the last thing that's going to show up here on stream. So here we see the journey of all the teams. Is there any team in particular you point out on the brackets, you're like, oh, that was a long journey?
Yep. I'm going to say Main Thailand attitude. Definitely. Having, I don't know, I was talking to Zero earlier today, and he's like, well, who knows how they'll fare here versus Vision Strikers, but you can't deny that they've definitely made it very far. Open qualifier team that maybe you can say only one word didn't show up in their group, Anbu being bested as well by Myth Attitude, but they actually make it into, of course, the playoffs. They beat themselves Morph. They beat Boom Esports in a highly contested 2v1, and now they're up against Vision Strikers. More so than that, though, we saw Boom Esports quite a bit. They had quite, I don't know, just a tough time here in this tournament, heartbreaking. The 3 series yesterday, we saw so much of them. We saw what they excel at, and we saw where teams, especially Attack All Around, were able to pull at the thread and actually best them in a 2-1.
As you can see in this bracket, the next series of the day and one of the series that's going to determine one of the finalists is going to be, as Seeking Strikers talk about, Myth Attitude versus Vision Strikers here in the upper bracket final. So now we can close traffic and we can move on to talk about this exciting game.
I mean, it's stressful. I'm gonna be real with you. I wasn't here on Saturday, so I didn't get to witness it firsthand before anybody on the
Still
street
watch
gets to
all
see
the
it.
VODs regardless.
Exactly, but when you take away the VODs and you take away the hype, you break it facts and numbers. Looking at the stats coming in from both Vision Strikers and Myth, it's pretty ridiculous what we're getting on average, just in general, because you're saying some of them are having inflated stats. All right, sure, you want to disregard them and put it into an overall average. And I think Vision Strikers in general is one of the best performing teams overall in terms of each one of their members being able to have almost at a minimum close or above 25% headshot rates and entry frags as well on each of their players. It's not just centered around one person.
That's
Yep.
incredible.
I think a lot of people would purport that this is going to heavily Vision Striker-sided match. And I think I would be hard-pressed to disagree with them if you show me the facts and kind of take me through the stats. I completely agree with you. It's hard to really deny that. But I think Myth have proved themselves to be really made of some stuff here. That Made in Thailand attitude has really been proving to be, decisive against a team like Morph. Sure, maybe you can say, Group D a little bit weaker here and there. Okay. Boom Esports, though, that 2-1, they earned that one.
Yeah, I mean, I can follow your logic here, but at the same time, sometimes you have to go a bit with the heart, right? Myth is showing a level of Valorant that was unexpected to many, right? Vision Strikers seems kind of like the perfect team. They seem unbeatable, but at the same time, Myth has managed to bring a kind of different style with still the consistency that you wouldn't expect from teams that, again, come from open qualifiers. Their teamwork is impeccable for the most part. Their gunplay is really solid, and they have some divergent strategies that earn them interesting points.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might argue that these strategies and these playstyles can work against a team that's not always super consistent, but some people might say Vision Strikers, they're just a step above most teams even in this tournament, right? And they've really been showing that through and through. These guys, I don't know, have they even dropped a map this tournament? Yeah.
Vision Strikers?
They have. They lost one
One,
map
right?
to attack all around and
Yes.
went full out to the group stage, so they've only lost one map here on their approach to the winners final.
Not bad at all. I mean, they've had some close calls. Even in the groups, Paper Rex and BBI both gave them a hard time for one map, but at the end, they're always able to close it in. And it's difficult when you look at a team like Vision Strikers, because when we looked at other of these consistent teams, we saw, oh, there's this weak point that they might be able to abuse. Vision Strikers just seem kind of perfect all around, to be honest. Is there anything that you like to remark that is maybe you might see Myth abusing here?
Well, I think for a lot of these other regions in C, especially when it comes to such a high-level tournament, obviously with COVID-19, they can't be here on stage and have that extra, that buff when you have the crowd shouting with you along with everything else. But especially with such high-pressure situations, Myth, I would expect them, they have quite enough. When you're comparing them to Vision Strikers in terms of consistency, there is a little, it's going to look a little bit more variant. However, I will say, if there's enough pressure put on these guys, and when they are feeling so close to winning, they're going to be boosting themselves up to 200%. Something that we haven't seen Vision Strikers do just because of their low amount of variance. They're just consistent all the way through. And in best of threes, you can see, even when they dropped the game against AAA, third game, still very, very consistent and performed outstandingly.
Yeah, I think when you get to this stage, especially in the upper bracket, as a team that everyone has been saying, oh, they're the favorites, oh, this team is going to be so good, right? I think that pressure can really start to mount, right? In the group stage, early on in the playoffs, you go, okay, it's okay, no one's really talking. But now all eyes, I think, are going to be on them, right? So I think this is going to be really a test of their mental strength, right? If they actually fall behind 2-0, or let's say early on in those first 2 rounds, do they have them to fight back? I think they will, but I can definitely imagine a scenario where, who knows, maybe the mental game is not going to be on their side. But like I said, Vision Strikers, they're looking real good here, and I think Myth, they're going to have to, they're up for a challenge, right? I think this is most definitely going to be their hardest opponent that they've faced yet in the
I
tournament.
was very surprised when they beat Boom, I'm not going to lie. It was an incredible game. They did a really good job, but honestly, Boom was one of my favorites too when coming to this tournament, right? Yesterday, yes, they lost against AAA, but it was incredibly close matches. Like, they also played, I think it was 7 matches that day, or 7 maps that day. So it wasn't easy for them to begin with. They were already really tired, and they still gave it their all. They still did an impressive performance against AAA. So that shows me the mettle of Myth, and I've almost seen like a Myth is improving literally every day of the tournament. Their strategies are getting more solid. They seem to have better improved tactics. They can deal with more teams. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and I think they kind of have this unknown factor going into it, right? Vision Strikers, you're facing up against a more, I don't want to say established, but a more recognized org like Boom Esports, right? Like Attack All Around, you're going to have some stats. You're going to be maybe even watching their tournament casually, right? Whereas for Myth Attitude, you're like, who are these guys again?
Yeah, because
But you have to take that seriously because they're in the grand final, or they're in the winners finals. They didn't get there by accident.
yeah, so just so people don't know the history of these teams, if you haven't watched much SEA Valorant, Myth, yes, they're a really well-known organization with a lot of esports teams, but the actual team Myth Attitude actually comes from a pub stack, you could call it.
Yeah, they're quite new to this tournament.
So the pub stack that they picked up was actually a stack that was just playing in Thailand. They got picked up by Myth because they're like really good, and they were winning a lot of local tournaments. Of course, not against AAA, but they even managed to actually squeeze a win when they became Myth Attitude against AAA 2-0 in one of the last Thai tournaments. So these guys, even if the org might be recognizable to you, especially if you follow other esports, you gotta understand they're pretty much a pub stack, and they're completely unknowns when it comes to the scene.
Yeah, and that's and thank you for that back information, for the back knowledge, right? Because that's exactly the point, right? Is especially for a lot of these smaller tournaments when they're up and coming and refining their skills, where you can look for places to actually try and back in their early games they really did poorly when they did X, right? Let's say they're really bad at retaking sets. Let's try and exploit that weakness. You're going to be hard pressed to find those VODs, right?
True.
That might be something working here in the favor of Myth Attitude.
Well, I also think that Myth Attitude, just in general, especially when you're coming at a team that, you were just basically pub stomping for a lot of the times and then got picked up by Myth Attitude, there's going to be a lot more pressure on you because, number one, we don't know where the ceiling for this team is going to be. That's good.
True.
That's almost immediate. And these guys are going to be relatively young, so they've got a lot more drive to be, hey, we're coming into an official Ignition series, and we need to take out some of the better teams that have like a better track record than us, because that just makes so much more of a story. Myth coming back home and being like, we just took out some Koreans this time round. We're feeling hot, and we want to be on top of the C Valorant scene.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the point you make is quite a good one, because when you're an org and you're scouting the teams, there's essentially two ideal scenarios with you. There's either the scenario where you pick up an already established team and you know they're good, so there's no risk there, or you alternatively go for a completely not established team that you see the talent of, but is really, of course, cheap to pick up because, well, they're not established. And that scenario can yield you the best results, because the return on investment for picking up a team like that is incredible. And we're already seeing this. I think Myth is incredibly happy with the performance of their team by just making it through to this point. I mean, no matter what happens, they end up third, like the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, and even if they get knocked into the lower bracket finals here, where Attack All Around is waiting for them, you have to remember 2 days before they qualified to this tournament, they beat Attack All Around 2-0.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So they're gonna go.
They know they're tie opponents.
Yeah, of course they're gonna go. Oh, okay, that's no problem. We actually 2-0'd these guys earlier. Let's just do that again real quick, and we'll get the rematch versus Vision Strikers, right? So I think yes, you do have this underdog attitude of we're maybe against these big guys, we might be unproven, but I think they still have a lot of confidence as well in this tournament.
Okay, well, guys, for those of you that have been tournament, congratulations. But for those of you that have not been able to watch every single day of this tournament, we understand. Of course, we are sick for Valorant. We love watching every single game, but not everyone has the time, and that's perfectly fine. That's why here at ePulse, we create these recap videos that just summarize the days and make it easier for you to understand what we're talking about, these narratives, these storylines, so you can appreciate teams in a better light. So please, appreciate Ryan Santos' work as we show you the recap of yesterday's day 6 of the Royal SEA Cup.
Welcome to the ePulse Royal SEA Cup. Today is the final day of this Ignition tournament, but now's a great time to go over all of the action yesterday. There are 6 games in total, and a lot of them went all the distance in the best of 3s. So let's see how all 16 teams in this tournament eventually got whittled down to just 3. The first game of the day was a lower bracket round 1 game with Todak facing off against Blackbird Ignis. For the first few rounds of the lower bracket, the games are best of 1, and this one went insanely close between the two teams, eventually finishing 13-11 to BBI on Ascent. Popogachi, the silver player for Blackbird Ignis, actually had the best game out of everybody, getting 31 frags and only having 10 deaths in the game as a whole, having huge impact and sending Todak home. Todak were going to be the first of 4 teams that would be exiting the playoffs today. We then switched our focus up to the upper bracket semi-finals, which was Attack All Around versus Vision Strikers, and then Made in Thailand versus Boom Esports. Attack All Around versus Vision Strikers were the 2 favourites for this tournament to do well in, and we expected this game to have some pretty high impact. The most surprising fashion of this, actually, was that Attack All Around had a great start, winning on Ascent 13-7 and almost winning on Haven to make it a nice clean 2-0 against one of the best teams in the world, to be honest. Unfortunately, this Haven game got a bit closer and actually went into overtime. As we hit the 12-all scoreline, it was pretty much all Vision Strikers from there who won the 2 rounds of overtime and ended up taking Haven. We then went to Bind, and it seemed that all of the energy that Attack All Around were using in the first 2 games heated out completely as they lost on Bind. 13-5, not as close as the game that I'm showing you on screen. On the other side of the upper bracket, we have Made in Thailand versus Boom Esports. and it was Boom Esports that dealt first blood with their win on Haven 13-8. Luckily, Split was the next map for Made in Thailand, who I would describe as a rather cerebral team with their playstyle. They made a very difficult map to play work to their advantage, and they won out still in a close game 13-10. But when I say close, it doesn't really compare to the last game in this best of 3 with Made in Thailand versus Boom that went to overtime, with Made in Thailand winning, like I'm showing you on screen, 15-13. These two games decided our upper bracket final, with Vision Strikers facing off against Made in Thailand, but we still had the lower brackets to clear out. Attack All Around fell down into the lower bracket with their loss against Vision Strikers, and they play up against Brent Esports, who won against Morph Team yesterday in the lower bracket to send Morph home. But Attack All Around had a point to prove. They actually won this really cleanly, 13-4 on Ascent, a map that they've looked pretty good on consistently throughout this tournament, and like we just saw, beat Vision Strikers on that map too. Boom Esports were the other team to fall from the upper bracket to the lower bracket, and they will face off against Blackbird Ignis, who we just saw beat Todak 13-11 on Ascent. This time we're going to Haven, a Boom Esports again trying to show that they deserve to be in the top seeding of this tournament, win out 13-6. So Brent Esports and Blackbird Ignis have gone home. And at this point, we only had 4 teams left in the tournament. The final game of the day was Attack All Around versus Boom Esports. Whoever would win would end up in the lower bracket final and would play against the loser of Vision Strikers versus Made in Thailand. Boom Esports was certainly a dark horse when it came to this tournament, and they really ran it close against Attack All Around in all of their games. The first of which went to overtime, but Attack All Around won it out 15-13 on Bind. Ascent was a map that, like I just mentioned, Attack All Around looked really good on, but this time it was Boom Esports that won it out 13-10 in real impressive fashion. But then we go to Haven. The gameplay on screen shows